Hi, welcome to Gotta Ping, a careers podcast you should listen to if you want to grow your career online and offline. Hi, my name is Mei Ping, and I'm a professional career coach and international speaker with more than a decade of experience at some of the biggest companies in the world. To learn more about what I do, visit meiping.com. That's meiping.com. All right, let's jump right into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my Gotta Ping podcast, a podcast that you should listen to if you are serious about growing your corporate career. So, welcome back to another episode of my special 30-day series where I'll be sharing with you some client success stories. So, these are clients who have worked with me in a one-on-one capacity or participants who have joined my training workshops and really saw a lot of improvements in their career as well as in their soft skills. So, in this series, I'll be sharing with you the client successes and basically some of the challenges that they faced when they first came to me, some of the focus points that we worked on during our sessions together, and the results that they managed to achieve at the end of our session or our program. So today I want to share with you a story of a client that I work with who was a student at one of the top universities in Asia. So I think what's very positive about this story is that even as a student, my client was really focused on his future career and his personal and his professional development to really take the step forward and reach out to pretty much improve himself, right, and get career coaching even before he started a full-time job. So when he first came to me, one of the challenges that he shared with me was that he felt that he is always very enthusiastic and he always wants to advise and help out his friends. But one thing is that he couldn't really understand why, even though he put in a lot of effort to help them and give advice and give guidance and all these positive things, he felt that his friends weren't really taking action or rather implementing some of the good advice that he was giving them, right? Because, he felt that he could help his friends and he really wanted to really give them that kind of guidance that they need, right? The other challenge that he also shared with me is that he felt that when he was doing his internship and he was in group projects, he found it very difficult to engage with other team members. He consistently felt like he needed to give them instructions, but he felt that there was a bit of a distance between him and the other team members. So even though they were kind of doing what he had told them to do as the project lead, but he didn't really feel that he managed to build a good working relationship with them. So those were really the two problems that he came to me with, and he did ask me, like, what is he doing wrong? Because he felt that he is such an enthusiastic guy and he's always like willing to help and like willing to volunteer to initiatives, but he's just really couldn't understand why, even with that kind of enthusiasm, he couldn't really build, I guess, a closer working relationship with his team members and with his fellow peers. And I think that kind of made him feel like that he wasn't included in a group, which obviously is not a very good feeling to feel, particularly as a student. And for him is a student leader, right? So what I actually did with him was to deep dive into his personality a little bit. So as usual, if you've been following me for some time, you will notice that I always talk about the importance of understanding your personality and how your personality can really impact the way that you approach your studies, you approach your projects, and how it truly affects you at your job and your future career as well. So that's something that I consistently focus on, and that is usually the main point that I start with when clients first start working with me. So I got this client to share with me, right, some examples of where he felt that he faced such challenges and basically what did he exactly do, right? What kind of responses that he got, and basically understanding the flow of what happened so that I could better see if there's something that he was doing but he didn't realize that was maybe creating that kind of impact or maybe reaction that he didn't really expect, and that kind of eventually hurt his self-confidence a little bit. So after one or two sessions, I managed to pinpoint the problem, and I told him that his biggest issue is that he's actually an extrovert. So what this means is that if you're an extrovert, most of the time you are busy talking, but you are not listening. And that is actually a really significant problem for introverts. And how I managed to identify this was when he told me that he always gave advice to his friends. One of the things I asked him was, okay, but like, what have your friends said to that advice? And he actually couldn't remember what his friends said, and he couldn't even remember if his friends responded to his guidance and advice. So what this shows me is that he was so busy talking and sharing that he didn't really pay attention to his friend, whether his friend actually understood what he was trying to say, whether what he was trying to share really made sense and fit his friend's situation. So to me, these two, right, are just very simple signs to tell me that he wasn't really paying attention because he was just so focused on telling his story, or he was really focused on what he wanted to say, but he forgot that a communication is a two-way street, right? If you're just talking and the other person is not listening, then pretty much you're in a monologue. It is really not a communication thing. So that was a bit of an aha for him because he never really thought about it that way. And one of the things that I really needed to work on with him was how to develop active listening skills, because if you don't know how to listen actively and really be able to catch the intention of the message that's being conveyed, then you're actually losing out on a lot of information as well as opportunities also. So in fact, developing active listening skills and really like understanding, right, your personality and the natural skills gap that are caused by your personality type is something that I cover in my 2-week Boost Your Confidence and Soft Skills at Work training, where I go into much more detail about understanding personality, the dynamics, the skills gap that are naturally created, and of course, some of the step-by-steps on how to really communicate in a two-way street in developing active listening and how to convey your message in a way that another person can understand you, so that you're not talking to yourself pretty much. So that was really one of like the biggest struggles that he faced. The other struggle he faced was the fact that he felt that he couldn't build a close working relationship with his peers, and I think that hurt him a lot because he felt that he's such a friendly guy, but how come people didn't really, I guess, see him as part of the clique, of part of the group. So that kind of hurt him a little bit. And again, I tied it back to his personality. So if you have been following me for some time, you also noticed that I consistently talk about the 4 personality types. And that is also something that I go into a lot more detail in my training. But for him, one of his personality types was that he was a thinker. So thinker is a person who is like very logical, and they're very focused on like solving problems, providing solutions, and taking action. So he had that kind of personality. But one of the problems that thinkers tend to have is that they can appear kind of transactional. So what that means is that they find it difficult to connect with the other person, and the other person that they're talking to may not feel like they are being heard or listened to. And that was how they probably, his friends felt that, he was just focused on getting the job done, but he was really not there to listen to their views or opinions, which again created a bit of a negative impact for him. So what I also focused on working with him was like how to some of the practical things that he can do to build that kind of connection as a thinker. Because personally, my own personality, I'm also a thinker. And how I managed to build strong working relationships with people, particularly when I was in the corporate world, working with people from 43 countries. There, of course, there are some tips and tricks that can be used to develop closer bonds, and like making sure that all your stakeholders, everybody in the meeting room can really understand that, you are ready to listen to them and you are ready to listen to their opinions as well. So I actually had to go through that a little bit with him so that he understands that oh, there is a solution to this. Because otherwise, what will happen is that he will continue feeling very hurt and feeling like there's something wrong with him, and that could really mess up his self-confidence and self-esteem, particularly when he's a person who is very energetic. So we just want to be careful to make sure that we don't kill that kind of like enthusiasm and energy, because that is actually a plus point for him. Not everybody is as enthusiastic as him, and that is really his superpower. What he needed to learn was that how to identify some of his natural weaknesses that could occur from his personality type, and really applying some tips and strategies so that he can better manage that, so that the impression that he's creating to other people is going to be either neutral or positive and not swaying into the negative side of things, if that makes sense. So with that, of course, I'm really happy to also share that over the number of sessions that we did together, eventually he felt that it was a lot easier to engage. And he also told me that over time, he felt that his friends actually listened to his advice a little bit more. And that was something that actually gave him a lot of satisfaction, because that was the reason why he started helping out his friends and giving advice in the first place. And that was really only possible for him to achieve once he learned how to listen well and making sure that the other person feels like he takes into account their views and opinions. So like both of the skills actually come in together at the same time. But of course, foundationally is to make sure that he understands how his personality affected the way that he communicated with other people. So that is a client success story that I want to share today. And I think what is really positive in this story, personally for me, is good to always see young people, particularly students and undergraduates, really reaching out for for help, coaching, mentoring to better prepare themselves for their future careers, particularly improving their soft skills, which is really going to be the foundation when you start your corporate career. So if you want to find out a little bit more on the kind of soft skills that I help my clients or training participants to develop, definitely check out my 2-week Boost Your Confidence at Work and Soft Skills training, where I go to a lot more detail on a lot of things that I teach my clients, even in one-on-one sessions also. So with that, I hope that this story inspires you. I hope that it also empowers you to really take charge of your career and grow your career and meet the professional goals that you have set out for yourself. So like I always say, right, if my clients can improve, I'm sure that you can also improve. And the real difference is taking the first step. So I hope that this episode inspires you to take that first step, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. For more awesome content like this, remember to like and subscribe. Also, head on over to my website, meiping.com, that's meiping.com, and subscribe to my weekly newsletter for more career growth and personal development tips. You can find the links in the description box below. Once again, you're listening to Gotta Ping, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!